for Glenn Marie, and she's here. I know a lot of you guys like to review off the recording, so we're recording. Who wants to tell me what a common chord modulation or a pivot chord modulation is?
I mean, I don't know if I know the exact definition, but putting it into practice, it's kind of just a transition from one key to another key.
Yes, it's a transition where you use a chord that exists in both keys. So I will do a very quick and down and dirty review of that kind of modulation. Let me just share the finale file from last time. Okay. It's not letting me share. Come on, you can do this. All right. I'm going to get it to make me to let me share even if I have to yell at it. Okay. Here we go. So, what we recognized last time was that if we have chords that are called closely related, and the definition of that is that we change the tonic. So, if I have a C major, I have to go to a different tonic, but as long as I go to a tonic that has got either one sharp more or one flat more or no change, it's called a closely related key. Anything more than one flat or one sharp is a foreign key. And we're only worried about closely related keys. So if I go from, say, C, I can go to F, that's one flat different, or I can go to G, that's one sharp different, or I can go to A minor, where there's no sharps different, or I go to D minor, where there's one flat different. There's 5 keys you can go to that are called closely related. And one of the easy ways to go to a closely related key is you recognize that there are usually 4 chords or something like that that are in both keys. So if I'm going to from the key of C, and here I wrote all the chords that are in the key of C, and I want to go to the key of F, there are 4 chords. The C chord's in both, the C major, the D minor is in both keys, the F chord is in both keys, the A minor is in both keys. I marked it with brackets. So I could write a progression where I started one key, I hit a chord that's in both keys, and I use that to change to the next key. And here's an example where I've got C major, and I'm going to switch to F major. So you write a C with a colon. That means I'm in C major. I write a 1 chord to a 6 chord to a 4 chord. But that 4 chord is also a 1 chord in the key of F. So I go 1 chord to 5, 7 to 1 in F. I just write that F to say now I'm in the key of F. You need a chord that's in both keys. And that chord right there is our pivot chord. And so we go, or our common chord. So we start in one key, we go a certain amount of distance. This is the chords in macro analysis. So it just gives us the chords in root position. I'm in a 1 chord to a 6 chord to a 4, which is the same as being in a 1 chord at F. So suddenly I'm in F and I'm a 1 chord 5 7 1. And the pivot chord is the last chord before you can no longer be in 2 keys at once. So once I put that B flat in there, this chord has to be in the key of F, can't be in the key of C because there's no B flat in the key of C. So I find the chord closest to that chord that could be in both keys, and that's my pivot or common chord. And once you write that, you can write music on it. So this is a piece I wrote where I used the common chord. I just made 1 chord per measure, and I used this progression, and I put a melody on it, and the melody now modulates from the key of C to the key of F. And that's all there is to a common chord progression. And we could use any chord that's shared to be a common chord progression. And we'll practice that more. But ask your questions now because that's what the quiz is going to be on. So ask your questions now, and then we're going to do some different modulations, and then we're going to go back and practice these. Who has questions? Let me get to the point where I'm going to stop the share so I can see you all. Does anyone have a question? So once you see it in the lecture, then the book is pretty clear. And once you've practiced it, it gets pretty clear. But if you haven't seen the lecture, then the book is a little difficult to understand. All right. So the other thing before we do the quiz is that there's an assignment that you guys have, which is assignment 14.6 in your book. And that's on let me get you a page number for it. I want you to turn to it because the instructions are really hard to understand. So turn to page 312 in your book, and that's assignment 14.6. So there's an art form called a chorale prelude. Bach wrote these, Brahms wrote these. They're usually keyboard pieces. Brahms did a famous one on Es ist ein Rosensprungen. That's actually a very popular piece, and Bach did dozens of them. And what they are is you take a hymn, and a hymn normally is in quarter notes. And you have these quarter notes, you change chords every note of a hymn. They're called chorale preludes because remember, chorale just means a German Protestant hymn. That's all a chorale is. So chorale's a hymn. And you change the harmonic rhythm. So each chord, instead of it lasting a quarter note, lasts a measure. And usually in the top line, the melody note from the hymn starts the measure and it lasts the measure. So you have a measure where the first note is your melody note and the harmony is your harmony for that melody note, and then you just fill in the melody so it lasts an entire measure. So if you have a hymn, for example, that might be like this. Let me see if I can share some sound with you and make this work. I'll just go back to Finale and share that sound.